What is the EU's democratic deficit? Imagine a club where members vote on rules but rarely get to see how decisions are made or have a say in the final outcome. That's similar to what many see happening in the European Union. The EU's democratic deficit refers to the gap between what the ideals of democracy promise and what actually happens in practice. Citizens want to have a real voice in how decisions are made, but often feel disconnected from the process. The core issue is that the institutions that govern the EU are not fully accountable to the people they serve. This concern started to grow in the 1970s when European countries began to integrate more deeply. At first, the European community was mainly about trade and economics, with limited political power. But as treaties like the Single European Act and the Maastricht Treaty transferred more authority from national governments to EU institutions, questions about democratic control arose. These treaties gave the EU more power, but did not always create strong ways for citizens to influence those decisions directly. One big factor is how the EU is elected. Only the European Parliament is directly chosen by citizens in elections held every 5 years. But even then, voter turnout tends to be low, and elections often focus on national issues rather than European ones. Meanwhile, other key EU bodies like the European Commission and the Council of the European Union are not directly elected by people. This makes it hard for citizens to feel they have a say in the most important decisions. Another challenge is how complex the EU's structure is. With many layers of government and a lot of bureaucracy, it can feel like citizens are far away from the decision-making process. Many people find it hard to understand how the EU works or how to influence it. This sense of distance weakens the connection between citizens and their representatives. There is also the tension between national governments and EU institutions. While national parliaments and governments are democratic, their influence over EU decisions can be limited once powers are handed over. This can create frustration, especially when EU policies seem to override national preferences. In response, the EU has tried to fix some of these issues. The Treaty of Lisbon, signed in 2007, increased the powers of the European Parliament and gave national parliaments a bigger role in scrutinizing EU laws. It also introduced the principle of subsidiarity, which says decisions should be made as close to citizens as possible. These steps aim to make the EU more transparent and accountable. Despite these efforts, the democratic deficit remains a topic of debate. Some experts argue that because the EU is a union of many different countries with diverse interests, it can never fully operate like a traditional democracy. Others say that the legitimacy of the EU depends on how well it delivers results and respects the sovereignty of member states. In the end, the democratic deficit is about balancing the benefits of European integration with the need for democratic legitimacy. It highlights the challenge of governing a union of many nations while ensuring citizens feel represented and involved. This ongoing issue reflects the complex history and evolving nature of Europe's efforts to build a more united yet democratic continent.